kind of
Right.
hot. Yeah.
Showtime.
Yeah. Okay, we're live, George.
What are we doing?
Welcome, everybody. This is Live at Epiphan. This is the show where we talk all about live streaming. We talk about our gear.
Yeah.
We talk about video production. What else do we talk about?
The future.
The future of live streaming.
All the things that entail live streaming.
Yeah.
To and from and everything in between, I guess.
So this is going to be a fun episode. This show was my idea. Definitely not
my idea. I'm going to leave, actually.
This is going to be a fun show because what we've done is we're encouraging you who are watching right now to put your comments in the live chat. Put them. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. Send us a Telegram. Let us know what features, what products you're interested in seeing that would help you. Like we do our best to design products that we think are going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
And no matter what, though, people come back and they say, well, we'd love to have, does it come in yellow?
Right. Maybe not literally that, but
Yeah.
we definitely get a lot of feedback and feature requests. But we probably still only hear from a small percentage of our customers, and some of those are in very niche use cases and workflows.
Okay.
And so maybe they're requesting things that are not necessarily ideal for our broader customer base.
Right, yeah, we have to pick. We have to pick and choose, right?
Exactly, and for us to figure out how to weight priority of things, sometimes we have to ask the question of what people are looking for. So you wanted to try to do that with this show.
Well, George, the truth is George is on the support team, which means he gets to hear from everybody, and a lot of people have a lot of questions and great ideas and stuff like that. Some of them are absurd ideas as well, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, everyone has an opinion, right? And whether it's realistic or not is a different question sometimes. And we do our best all the time to try and handle that and to see what we can do. So, for me, I personally think this is a bit of a risky proposition because you never know how people. Well, you don't want to upset people. Yeah. At the end of the day, I'd like to be able to deliver the best we can to our customers at all times, and I don't like to disappoint people, but sometimes that's reality. So this is for me a bit of a risky proposition, but we'll see how it goes. So we are watching chat over here on the laptop. I can see Pem's online saying hi everyone, actually quite some time ago while we were getting prepped, and I can see Stefan in there as usual every week saying hi to hearing us in Canada here. I wish you could see it on camera. I don't think you can, but it is very cold outside, and there's already quite a bit of snow here in Canada, which is abnormal for this time of year, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So winter came early. It sucks.
That's all right.
No, it sucks.
So we have our whiteboard here. We're going to crank out through some of these ideas and try to explain them, because a lot of these are just new technologies that we haven't worked with yet, and some of the ifs, ands, and buts around them are pretty cool. So why don't I grab my list?
Yeah, so we tried to compile a list, basically went around and said to a certain number of people, what are the things that you've heard in the past 6 months, year, whatever, let's throw them on a list. We'll start with that, and of course we are watching the chat there to look at what that is. So
you ready?
And then maybe we can come up with maybe a top 5 or something at the end. I don't know.
Sure.
Take a poll.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes.
Let me hit you right off the top.
Sure.
People want to stream live to Instagram with our equipment.
So right now the biggest challenge with that is that Instagram, well, IGTV, subset of Instagram, does not do live. Regular Instagram does.
All the time.
However, it's a weird format.
Because it's vertical, right?
Yeah. And not only that, they haven't exposed a streaming API the way Facebook Live or YouTube Live have.
And they don't allow even basic RTMP.
And that's the funny thing, they are using RTMP in the back end.
But they don't expose it, right?
Right, so they don't make it easy. It's possible, and there have been some Epiphan customers who have done this with a Pearl. They've inspected the web page code, dug out an RTMP server URL and key, and made it work.
That's cool.
It's not a good idea because who knows what's going to happen, and things are going to change all the time because it auto-generates all this stuff. So until Instagram creates a better live system to allow third-party encoders outside of their app, it's probably not realistic.
The next one is not on the list. I can see a comment here right off the top, and it's one of the most popular ones, which is Webcaster X2 with a battery adapter.
Yeah, so, or an attached battery, as Mance was saying there. Yeah, and you know, actually, funny enough, we have some old Webcaster X1 kind of scrap units in the back here. We actually, the Webcaster X2 was already an improvement over its immediate predecessor, in the sense that the old one actually ran off of 12 volt, where the X2 runs off of 5 volt. So it's very easy to power a Webcaster X2 from an existing battery.
Right.
Yes, we all agree it would be fantastic if it was fully integrated. So
right now we have that, like our setup for a Webcaster X2. If you want to add a battery, it's pretty straightforward. This is your Webcaster X2, little antenna, and you have a cable going to a Amazon battery, right?
Well, basically any battery that's going to output 5 volt at anywhere from 2.5 to 3 amps, which is not difficult to find, and can be relatively inexpensive. Now, I think ideally what a lot of people are asking about is what if we could power it off of, you know, those standard Sony or Canon batteries.
Yeah, I've got something.
A straight clip on that. And, you know, that is a great idea. And I can say that, you know, we have this list of future, I guess, sort of dreams that we would like to do. And so down the road, certainly I know one of the things on that sort of dream list, and one of the reasons we're doing this show is, on that dream list there is the idea of, if there's a Webcaster X3, you know, how easy, what would it cost to do exactly like
so
these
this is
things have.
An example, this is a best view monitor. This is the kind of small monitor you'd bring to...
And use with a Webcaster?
Yeah, you use it with a Webcaster, or if you're doing filming like camera is right now, you might want a larger monitor. But it has a battery mount on the back.
Standard
and I'm seeing these things on all kinds of things lately.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, that is definitely one that we've heard a lot. We are listening to that one, and it is on our dream list of, you know, if we're going to have a successor to the Webcaster X2 that's very mobile focused, that's definitely very high on the list. So yeah, that's a great one we do hear all the time.
Another one we get about the Webcaster X2 would be a way to mount it more easily. Right now there's no
a shoe or whatever,
hot shoe mount or a 3.5, like even, sorry to bring up.
The 1/4 inch screw or whatever.
1/4 inch screw, so you could mount it to other video gear like this sweet little monitor here. So these are things that, you know, we listen to customers, and so hopefully.
And I think when we were speccing out the X2, we didn't anticipate at the time. I mean, again, when you look at the curve of what it takes to do R&D development and everything else, by the time something goes to market, you've been working on it for quite a while. And I don't think we really anticipated that this percentage of customers would be using it as mobile as they are. We've now learned that lesson, so that as we move into a phase of doing new R&D and new development, we can better consider that use case than we did previously, which is good. And you know, and there's some other things in here as well that people are asking about.
So here's one. People want built-in Wi-Fi on the Pearl family. So for example, here's our trusty Pearl Mini.
Take this off.
You're gonna do some drawing?
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
So people would like Wi-Fi on this product and our Pearl 2.
Yeah, and so that's something that we'll see, but I probably would say it's not a high priority. And the main reason for that is a lot of people like the idea of it for convenience. The downside is that live streaming at high bandwidth over Wi-Fi kind of sucks. And
we've learned that hard.
Talking about the Pearl family of products, we can be generating a lot of data out of these. Webcaster is a much more limited amount of data compared to what a Pearl can do when you start doing multiple channel encoding at potentially very high bit rates. You could collapse Wi-Fi very quickly on a Pearl if you wanted to. And of course, if we had that and the Wi-Fi fell down, well, I would get the phone call first. And I'll be honest, I don't want to hear about people complaining about their crappy Wi-Fi, right?
But there is a way to put, you can't connect it, right?
Right, exactly. I mean, so some people will use Ethernet to something that's operating as a Wi-Fi hotspot to bridge between that. Again, that's assuming your own risk at that point.
Of course.
You know, but for us, especially with the Pearl family of products, they're focused around ultra reliability And the best way to do that for a piece of streaming gear is always going to be Ethernet.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's the focus.
Right.
If we could find a way to very easily segment the job of remote administration versus what you're using for streaming.
Oh, so you get Wi-Fi control.
Right, that would be different, but that's not as simple as it sounds.
It's also not as useful as a complete.
Well, that's actually the number one reason I hear it, is that they want to be able to remotely administer it over Wi-Fi, recognizing that bandwidth is always going to be better on Ethernet.
Yeah, okay.
So again, if there's an easy way to segment that, then that might be possible.
Okay, let me drop this. Let's see. Here's one for you. Very popular topic, NDI. Everybody's asking us about NDI. We get comments in most live shows about, can we get NDI in the Webcaster? Can we put NDI in Pearl? And before you answer this, can you just give like the 10-second version of what is NDI for people who don't know what it is?
Sure. First, which version of NDI?
You've used up 2 seconds, now you have 8 more seconds.
So NDI is basically a way to get high quality video over a network.
Okay.
It is not lossless, it is compressed to a degree, and the version of NDI can change that equation.
Yes, okay.
And also how you can use it changes. So the regular version of NDI, if you will, is something that is technically open. Anyone could implement it if they want. The more popular version of NDI, which is starting to be seen more and more, is NDI-HX. It's a more compressed version of NDI and is not entirely open.
Yes.
So not anyone can just grab it and work with it. There is a lot of cool technology. It's moving a lot of studio spaces away from having to run a mess of SDI and whatever other cables.
Because they just run through all their existing network.
Exactly.
So in a building like this, we've got networking everywhere.
Yeah.
Like every building does.
Exactly.
You don't see buildings without networking.
Right.
Which means you could run all of your AV equipment through the same gear.
I don't have to worry about using super high-end traditional video routing with switches and boosters and everything everywhere.
I'm excited about all the other stuff too, not just the bringing camera feeds to and fro, but being able to bring in, like, we were doing some experiments with NDI, and we saw someone using a Skype feed over NDI, and you can bring in titling, like new
because it's over the network, it means
so all these data streams.
It almost becomes more of an application layer than a signaling layer. And that's one of the cool parts about it. So most new PTZ cameras coming in the market are starting to integrate NDI, which is cool. There's applications for your phone if you just want to send what your phone is doing over NDI. There's obviously PC and Mac-based applications. Skype can use it, Skype for Business, things like that. So there's a lot of cool potential there. The answer...
NDI on Webcaster.
No. I mean, I won't say ever, but realistically, the other thing with NDI is it requires a lot of processing power.
Okay, and Webcaster is a small computer, basically.
Exactly, and it's a very small, lightweight device. So whether or not it could ever successfully use NDI in a way that actually represents a decent quality and decent performance is doubtful.
So does that mean, is the flip side then, that means Pearls could conceively handle NDI?
Yeah, and that's what we're experimenting with now, is to see what the performance level is. Because with the Pearls being multi-input, multi-encoding boxes, we want to be able to say that that's also true of NDI.
Right, we don't want to just eat up all the processing power just trying to handle NDI.
You don't want to take a Pearl 2 that we typically say is a 6-in, 6-out kind of encoder and say, oh, but by the way, if you're using NDI, you get 1 or half or something, right? So we're trying to characterize that performance, see what we can do to make it work.
Cool.
And this is with regular NDI, not necessarily with HX, although maybe HX is something we can do later on. And hopefully that means maybe we can bring in 4 NDI sources and mix things together. So it'd be very cool.
Let's check out our comments here. So there's lots of questions. Make sure you put your comments in the chat. We will try to answer anything you have about Webcaster, about just live streaming in general too. If you have the technology things that you're not sure about, like SRT and HLS dash, these are all technologies that are coming into our world, so we need to understand them. And you're probably going to have questions about them too. So what have you got, George? Yeah, so looking at these, so there's a few things in here. I'm going to try and touch on some of Stefan's ones here and kind of lump them all together. He commented there probably about my performance comment, saying just upgrade the CPU and the Webcaster. Not that easy to do. Yeah, that is the It Webcaster. Would be changing the entire product. Yeah, but it doesn't mean in a future product like that could happen. Well, that plays right into his next comment, or earlier comment, which was, a €500 to €600 multi-HDMI
that has some switching, PIP, maybe some higher quality audio connections. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's describing Pearl Mini.
Yeah.
Except for the 500, 600 euro part.
And so, certainly those kind of go hand in hand. A more powerful box with a few extra options. Yeah. Exactly that. And that plays into your next one as well, remote controlling it over the network. So just like the Pearls again, using a web browser-based UI to be able to remotely control it on the local network.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. I mean, that's something we've traditionally had lots of products that do those things.
Yeah, and we're looking into that to see if we can bring other control into the Webcaster.
But it always comes down to a question of at a price, right? I mean,
these things cost a lot to develop.
There's a cost of everything. Every extra piece you add in costs X more.
Yeah, we get to pick. It's nice. It's kind of like Christmas. We get to pick and choose what we want to work on and what we focus on.
And that's one of the reasons why we kind of wanted to do this exercise, was to figure out how much could we put in up to a certain price. Is there a market at that price for those features?
Yeah.
And if not, then there's no point in doing it. So, so there's some other ones in here. Tim Trott Productions. Yes, he was mentioning the 5-volt thing. Yeah, we can definitely do that. A solar charger to do 5-volt, 2.1 output. For the Webcaster, 2.1 is a little low. You really want 2.4 to 3 amps. And so a lot of the solar ones don't really cut it because they just don't put a constant output enough. I have a cool little solar one I bought for camping this summer. Worked awesome for charging a phone, as a small battery as a buffer.
Right.
So actually pretty impressed with it, but there's no way it would charge a Webcaster. It would power it consistently. Let's see, there's a couple, see what else we have in there. Let's see, stream record at the same time. Obviously, yes, Pearls already do that. Let's see. Internal bonding, that can be a tough one, Marco. So you're talking about doing cellular bonding. Building that internally is tough because cell standards globally are not the same. They change, frequencies change. There's obviously a whole other world of regulations when you start using cellular signals compared to Ethernet or Wi-Fi. We are not experts in that, and it's not something that we want to become experts in. That's a whole other level of R&D.
I'd love to see more solutions out there. For people, I don't know if it's like Marco, I don't know his business, but...
Well, doing it over USB is something that's more realistic, right? Being able to plug in a USB, here in Canada we call them rocket hubs, but a USB LTE modem directly into something. Again, then
to do the bonding part, right?
Right. That can be done at a software layer, but then you have to have enough USB ports or whatever you're doing in order to support that. So that's more realistic.
And another question for that, Marco, would be whether we'd get to that before 5G.
Right.
And it sounds like 5G is still a ways away.
It's starting to come online.
It's starting to come online, but I mean, in 5 years, are we going to be laughing at cellular bonding? Can you imagine when we had to? Remember when we used to have to
at the end of the day, no matter what, there's always potential for interference, and there's always potential for dead spots with certain carriers. Different carriers use different.
So you can do cellular bonding and 5G at that point, really, right?
Right, and then you're
just be rock
then
solid.
You're laughing. Then you're laughing.
Yeah, then you're laughing. I put a comment up here. I know someone talked about SRT.
Yes, John Treadwell said that. Hey, John. Yes, SRT. SRT is an interesting one. Basically, it's designed to be a secure and reliable transport. That's the idea.
So transport of your data from your encoder to your audience, or from your...
Typically, right now, it's often used site to site. So if you have an office in one place and an office in another place, and you're trying to get broadcast quality video from those sites, and you don't necessarily want to have it super compressed over the internet, SRT is one way to do that.
So is it a bigger, is it just allow for
it's just a different transport type. But there are some other potentials with it as well. It's a fairly new technology. It is an open standard, which is good. These are good things.
But not too many people are using it. I see High Vision uses it.
High Vision kind of kicked it off, really. And we'll see. It's growing, but it is much more of an enterprise, high-level enterprise
So it's
class
basically an enterprise version of, instead of doing RTSP, right?
Yeah,
it's more resilient.
I mean, it's, it's also designed to be extremely low latency.
Oh, really?
And that's one of the big advantages of it. So there's a few things out there that are, so SRT, is there potential for that? Again, if we're talking about an enterprise type of thing. Is there potential for that with a product like Pearl 2?
Yeah.
Maybe. Certainly we're going to do something like NDI ahead of that in terms of a priority.
Yeah, because just the infrastructure doesn't seem to be there as much, and maybe John can tell us otherwise, but...
Right, exactly. Right now, for our customer base, it's pretty edge case.
Yeah.
And maybe that'll change as the technology gets adopted more.
Yeah.
You know, the day we start seeing relatively inexpensive PTZ cameras that use SRT, then maybe that changes the conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
But when we're talking about devices that are $10,000 talking to other devices that are $10,000 only, that's not really the same conversation.
Yeah, sometimes we put out a feature and find out that like the market can be a little slow to bring it up. So we put 12G SDI, 4K SDI into our Pearl 2, which is amazing. But there's still not a tremendous amount of 12G SDI cameras out there.
Right, and so when we started doing that in the R&D and development phases of Pearl 2, we thought, well, 4 years from now, when everyone's buying Pearl 2s, obviously there will be cameras with 12G SDI.
Yeah.
Wrong. It didn't happen until this year when Canon finally went, hey, maybe we should have a camera with 12G SDI.
Yeah.
So we were way ahead of that curve, bleeding edge, if you will.
Yes.
And it's actually been a negative. In a lot of cases.
Negative because we invested our R&D into that feature.
Exactly, and people still had to use some other external box to convert something to 12G SDI, and that adds expense, and people don't like to do that. Yeah. So, so there's some downsides to trying to be on that bleeding edge.
Cool. Well, we got lots of other great ideas here. We've got people talking about VR and 360. Pre-made lower thirds and graphics in Pearl. Have you got any comments you want to talk about there?
Yeah, I was just trying to go through here. You know, some people, I guess playing into some of those other questions. A Naughty Mouse saying, you know, remote live switching somehow. So that's possible today on a Pearl. If we're talking about doing that on something like a Webcaster, well, then it would need some sort of different level of control API or a web browser-based UI, which it does not currently have. And we kind of touched on that earlier. Maybe that's something that could be there in a future generation of that, with a lot of rework to the hardware in order to accomplish that. So there's one question. This is an interesting one, actually. Daniel Goldberg saying, "Hey, how about getting a signal, HDMI or SDI, into an iOS device?" iPad, iPhone, any Epiphan products to make that happen.
Into it. That's interesting.
Into it.
Yeah.
So there's two issues with this. One, iOS devices are not particularly good at being USB hosts.
Anything hosts.
They're kind of bad at it. In fact, it's mostly restricted. Big surprise, it's Apple.
Yeah.
It is currently possible on an Android device to do this using our AVIO.
Okay.
The performance is not good because the USB hubs and controllers in mobile devices are really slow.
Yeah.
They're good for charging, they're not good for data transfer. And so while you can use like a Galaxy S9 or whatever and an AVIO to capture video through it, the frame rate performance is not great because the bandwidth is so much.
So it's just not a powerful enough computer to do.
Exactly, the bandwidth is not great over that link.
Okay.
So are the devices getting better? Yes, absolutely, and maybe as they evolve, you know, but our device would have to be doing some form of compression realistically, and our capture cards do not. They're uncompressed. So, you know, is it possible? Yes.
Okay, I got more for you. People want built-in video editing on Pearl.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. I hear that every now and then, not a ton of times, but every now and then.
So they want to take their VOD recorded assets and do some editing there.
The recordings already exist on Pearl. They're on that internal hard drive.
Yeah.
They want to be able to do their quick edits right there in that same web UI. So in some ways, we've made this possible through AV Studio, which is an external service.
AV Studio is a cloud-based service where you can push your video up to, and you can do really basic, super fast batch editing on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Currently, it's not set up so well for a local setup like
exactly.
This kind of
and I think the idea, when I've heard it, it's usually guys who are doing offline conference recording. They're not pushing it anywhere.
Yeah,
They don't want to have to offload it to give it to an editor for, you know, they want to minimize that pipeline, but they don't want to have to deal with the cloud because the internet's unreliable where they are. And so they would rather be able to say, hey, I have this one box. It's already doing all of my all-in-one except for the editing.
I've heard our developers talk about how the way we record on our Pearl systems as well is completely linear. So theoretically, you could go in and just choose your start and end points for any given recording.
Yeah.
And that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there's been some experiments on how to do on-premise or offline AV studio
that's
stuff,
something that
right?
we're looking at, because people talk about the idea
so
of wanting a more local-based.
But again, I think that breaks down to a question of performance, right? What happens if you start trying to cut up these clips and re-render it on a Pearl? Does that mean that you have to stop everything else you're doing?
Because rendering is not
it's not lightweight.
It's not lightweight.
Yeah.
So what else? VR and 360 signal capture. Now this is, someone's going to say, can I use my Webcaster to do VR and 360? And that's a 4K.
Not always, but to make it look good, it is.
A good one, yeah. I don't want to watch your 1080 VR. No, thank you.
First challenge is there's not a lot of cameras, I guess, for 360. Let's talk about 360 first. There's not a lot of cameras out there that actually provide a live, pre-stitched 360 signal. There's a few.
Yes.
There's that Garmin one.
That Garmin Verb.
That's like $800 Canadian. And even
it's more than that.
Is it? It's like $1,000 or something.
Like that,
It's not cheap. And 360 is still kind of gimmicking, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There are some cheap ones out there, but their output is 720 total stitched, which means when you're looking at only one section of it, it just looks like trash.
Oh, yeah,
it's so bad.
So
it's
stitched
so
meaning
bad.
it has to go, so if this is, it's really 720p like that? Or is it some kind of wide, ultra wide thing?
Yeah, basically, yeah. There's an encoded bit to tell it that it's 360, but But yeah, at the equivalent of a 720 resolution.
So it takes your image and wraps it kind of like
exactly. It wraps it. Yeah, and it's just it's at low res it's terrible. It's just so ugly.
Yeah.
I think part of the things is because of it really only looking good at higher resolutions. And the cheaper cameras don't really do 4K, 8K, whatever. The way around it is we just won't give you an HDMI out. We'll just only record to the device itself, and you can deal with the file later.
Yeah.
But that doesn't help for live.
No.
We have run some experiments, and on the Pearl products where we can do a 4K input on Pearl 2.
And a 4K stream.
It is possible to do it.
Yeah, I know I met some customers at NAB last year who were doing 4K output to a Wowza server or something like that.
You can do it straight to YouTube even.
There. Yeah,
it's possible. VR is a whole other thing. So first problem is there's multiple versions of VR.
Yes.
There is no single standard to it.
Right.
And so are you doing the kind that's stereoscopic left eye, right eye? Or what are you doing?
Yeah, right.
How are you capturing that signal? Does it require two separate lines for right eye, left eye? So that one I think is a lot harder. And I'm honestly not sure how to overcome that. I also think from a live streaming perspective, it's really gimmicky. Who's watching it?
Yeah, that'd be horrible.
And plus, who wants to? If it's you or I, we're just going to get sick and puke all over the place. So that's not going to help anything. Hopefully, Kenneth is watching. He probably isn't, but
yeah, yeah. No, that's not our forte. VR. Okay. People are talking about Webcaster. Here we go. Basic overlay options. So I think the idea is you might want to bring in a logo onto your stream, or bring in some lower thirds or graphics, something like that.
And that's a super popular one with Webcaster, and that's definitely something that should be looked at and considered.
I have seen some prototypey stuff around here where people are trying to bring in different kinds of browser feeds into a Webcaster to see if they can make that that work. And all of these things, you bring them in and see how well the device performs, and if it still performs great, then we put it out.
Right now, it's easy to do that, obviously, on a Webcaster with some sort of external device generating it and sending it through an HDMI
Sure, but it's not an overlay.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And, well, it depends on what you're using, I guess. So actually, this morning, I saw one of the members of the Facebook group for the Webcaster X2 posted up a sample of what he's been doing using an external mixer to throw up a title slide with a timer and some stuff like that.
So he's doing,
but it's all being generated by that external mixer, and then we're just taking whatever's on that HDMI. The beauty of something like a Webcaster or Pearl or anything else, we don't really care what's on that HDMI. We just care that there is an HDMI.
Yes, yes.
So whatever you're generating ahead of it is going to be reflected.
We'll accept any signal.
Well, no, let's not get crazy. We had this argument earlier this week.
We did. Well, there's other stuff for Webcaster. I'll hit you up.
Sure.
So people want to bring in overlays, scoreboards, titles, lower thirds. Those are all the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and on a similar note, on Pearl, people want GIF support to support animated GIFs.
That's a good idea, actually.
Yeah.
Because it would open up, so Pearls already support JPEG and PNG images, including transparencies for PNGs, which can be very powerful and creative. But sometimes, you want maybe just a small dynamic bug or lower third or something that's going to pop in and out. And that would be a super easy way to do it. Maybe you just want to live stream memes all day. I don't know. I mean, that's easy way to go.
Pearl, the ultimate live
meme machine.
Meme machine.
Yeah.
Okay, we did SRT. Here's another one. I'll write your acronym up here for you.
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
What? I'm scared now.
Yeah, you should be.
HLS. Oh, this is a good one. So HLS, HTTP live streaming, is a protocol kind of invented, used primarily by Apple. So as you can imagine, it's not very good.
And you're not into it, yeah?
No, it has some pros and has some cons. Currently, the Pearls can do HLS within a local network with directly connected viewers.
Okay.
It's there so that we could actually serve iOS viewers easily, because for some reason iOS devices can't just open a normal H.264 stream in RTSP or MkII like everything else can.
Listen, take out our headphone jacks, they can get rid of
Exactly. You can get rid of live streaming.
Live streaming protocols, all right.
But there are a lot of platforms that are starting to use HLS as a publishing type as an alternative to RTMP. And I think that's going to grow.
Yes.
One of the reasons, it's a positive and a negative of HLS, is that it basically sends small blocks of recorded data, essentially, as opposed to a true live stream. Because of that, it's super reliable, but it also means that the latency is massive.
Yes.
So the latency sucks, the buffering is high, but it's super reliable. You don't get that weird glitchiness where all of a sudden you lost a bunch of packets. That doesn't happen, and that's why some platforms are starting to use it, is a more reliable way to get that, as long as you don't mind the latency kind of sucking a lot.
Okay, you check the chat.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of stuff in here, which is great, and I can go on, we can kind of go on all day with these feature requests because we hear them all the time. We go to trade shows, we meet people like you who come and tell us what they think of our products. And we see other products in the market too that are doing innovative stuff. Like, we're always chasing each other in the market, which is great. But if you have any comments or suggestions, put them in the live chat on YouTube or Facebook. And George number 2 here will happily queue them up.
Yeah, so just looking at this, there was a couple things in there. Some Marco, we kind of covered that already. Remote start stop for Webcaster. You know, there's a few other pieces that go along with that. Daniel followed up with the iOS device for grabbers, saying, you know, what about just an iPad skipping the iPhone? An iPad is just a giant iPhone. It would be one and the same. Tim was mentioning the Nikon Key Mission 360 as a potential 360 camera. I have looked at that one. It doesn't seem quite as good as Garmin, but maybe they've updated it.
Yeah,
and we can go back.
We've always talked about doing some kind of show here in-house where we bring in the 360 camera and do it as a 360 live stream. Yeah, it's kind of an experiment we haven't done yet. So stay tuned. When we can get budget approval for a beautiful 360 camera to use once, we'll do it. Or until we hire someone on staff here who has a Garmin sitting around in their locker somewhere. Someone was mentioning, what about a giant promotion for Adam Frame? That guy is awesome. Adam, I didn't know that that was your anonymous name. Now I do. And even if it isn't, I mean, you can't give a promotion from 0 and plus 0 is 0, right? Anyway. Adam is our other, one of our other amazing tech specialists. I'm just teasing him because he can hear me right now. So. Yeah. Let's see, there's a couple others. People just chiming in on some of the things you were talking about. USB ports for adding graphics to some, you know, using that for like Webcaster, bring data in, things like that. I know people ask us about bringing in media onto Pearl often, and that's something that I'd be keen on. We don't have a ton of requests for it, but to be able to play back video files right on Pearl while you're doing a production, that'd be kind of fun to see. Yeah.
Stefan was mentioning, wanting or trying to do a live stream 24/7 to YouTube, but the stream stops after some time and then you have to restart it. I assume, Stefan, that you're using the Webcaster for that. That, unfortunately, is a function of the YouTube Live API. It has nothing to do with Webcaster. It's that they limit it to 4 hours without it stopping and starting, unless you tag it as continuous, which it should run forever, but they still may disconnect it. If you want to do a non-stop stream on YouTube, it is possible, but with custom RTMP.
Right.
Which is a great segue into the inevitable question that I told you was going to be hammered on in chat, which is custom RTMP for Webcaster. There's a bunch of people throwing that in there, and I knew that was coming, guys.
Yeah.
Yes, that's something that gets asked all the time. Again, Webcaster's concept is to be based around these APIs. So I honestly can't say whether or not that's ever going to come to Webcaster or whether that's something that's in a next gen. Again, it would need a more involved UI. Maybe that comes along with some sort of web browser-based remote UI like the Pearls have, because then it's much easier to put that information in. Some platforms for custom RTMP, their stream keys are like 120 or more characters long.
Really?
You really want to type that in on an on-screen keyboard on a Webcaster?
That's a good point. So,
it's a bit messy.
bringing a
copy and pasting is what you want, and you really need a browser UI for that.
Browser UI and custom RTMP kind of go hand in hand, and I've been pushing for it here. I know there's lots of other people who would like it as well. So let's hope that we at some point see that, or we see it as part of a next-gen version of our Webcaster.
Cameron, you're standing right there. You could just yell past the camera to ask us a question. But Cameron asks, playback alpha channel for media files. And I know this came up at a conversation.
That's a complicated one, isn't it?
Could be.
Because media files, isn't that like, what codecs support alpha channel? Animation?
See, now you're going over my head. You're going into you and Cameron's world.
Yeah,
so
there's not many video codecs that I've seen that support an alpha channel.
Yeah, and that starts to get a little more complicated. It's a great idea.
And big files. These are not H.264 files.
Exactly. It's a great idea, and it's maybe something that, again, maybe not in current generation hardware, because anytime you're talking about large amounts of data, you're also talking about large amounts of processing.
Yes.
And if you're trying to do that on the fly, that's even more.
So I don't see it so much coming in over a video file being able to support alpha, but I could see it coming in over NDI, which supports alpha channel, or some other browser-based or other data stream that is not a video playback, like traditional video.
Right. Again, maybe a next generation device, not only being 12G SDI, but supporting 10-bit, because I think 10-bit SDI can also do alpha.
Really?
I believe so. I might be wrong, but I believe so. So there's other ways of doing it, sort of piggybacking on another signal to kind of expand that capability.
See, people want to know how you're filming and texting, and Cameron pays deep attention to his film work, to the point where he can even send text messages. So
I was wondering what he was doing with his phone out. Now I know.
Anyway, we could go on here all day. I don't want to go too long.
Yeah, so keep them coming in there, but there was a few other things on there, though. I think we should.
Well, people want to know about analog audio on the Grabber family. So I think what they mean is to be able to have a capture card and bring in a video signal, and alongside it bring in an audio signal. So for example, if you have a mic that you've got set up and you're trying to talk through, and also bring in a video signal.
So that's a great one. I do hear that one fairly often. And the reason behind it is that most people are using laptops today. They're not using desktops anymore. And even in desktop world, old school sound cards aren't really a thing anymore. So getting analog audio into a laptop, if you don't want to do it over USB, if you want to do it straight analog, you're dealing with these headphone combo jacks.
Yes.
They're noisy, they're kind of crappy.
Yeah.
They're not great. So trying to do it through a single device would save people an extra effort. They don't have to go out and buy a Focusrite Scarlett to bring it in over USB.
Yes,
right?
okay.
Good idea. Our devices today currently don't do that. So would it be possible to do that? Sure, there are other devices in the market that do that. They're fairly premium priced and have their other drawbacks.
Sure.
For example, I can think of one off the top of my head that the Web Presenter, that some of our customers I'm sure are aware of and bring up. It has analog audio on it, but its final video output is only 720p, which kind of disappointing. So pros and cons, right?
Sure,
and by the time you spec it up to look really good with its front screen and everything, you're like $1,000 almost. It's a little crazy.
Are you happy? Have you answered enough questions?
I don't know. I mean, you have this huge list here. You tell me.
Let's call it a day.
Oh, you can't catch though. You can text me.
You can text if you can't catch.
All right, that's perfect.
Thanks to Cameron. Thanks to Lisa for helping produce the show. Thanks
Yeah.
to everybody for watching. We are set up in the middle of our space today just because we wanted to try mixing things up
Have some
and
fun.
get out from behind
Yeah.
the desk.
Stand
And
up for once. Stretch.
That's right. It is nice. Yeah. We're going to be here next week at 3 o'clock. We're here every week at 3 o'clock. Subscribe to the channel.
Yeah.
We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. And it is still
Shark Week.
Shark month.
Yeah. So next week is the last one, right?
Last week of Shark Month, where we're using StreamShark to help make this show work. So we've talked a lot about StreamShark, but anyway.
So if you guys missed that interview show, go back and watch that. Learn a little more about StreamShark. It was great to have James on, talk about the platform and everything that they do. Yeah.
So we'll see you next week.
But keep those comments coming.
Yeah.
We'll love to read them. Love to
another
read
show.